Hey folks, welcome to the 10th, and as Aileen pointed out, this will be the best podcast for Casandra Properties, Avi. We are really excited today. We have incredible guest. She is absolutely wonderful in every way, a true visionary and a real treat for us, and honestly a blessing for Staten Island. We have Aileen Fuchs, the president and CEO of Snug Harbor. Aileen.
The crowd goes wild. Thank you.
How we doing?
I mean, what kind of question is that? I don't know.
Already critiquing the podcast. Bad question number one.
What is this lead? I'm out of here. Yeah. You know, I'm hanging in.
Yeah.
Hanging in, right? We're hanging in. We're working hard, right? I don't know, like.
That's what we do now.
That's what we do. We adapt, right? We're constantly thinking of the next scenario, what you're gonna, like, living with uncertainties become the norm, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
It's making us more adaptable, more resilient.
It is.
I do believe in that.
I believe in that too. I feel like you can literally feel your mental energy, like it's like a workout. It feels different. Like you can accept craziness better.
Without a doubt.
Like, absolutely.
We were talking about where we think this is going to go and what tomorrow is going to look like, and it's so important to remember when you're in the moment. It almost seems like there's no tomorrow or there's no end, but like we did after 9/11 and Superstorm Sandy and the '08 crash, we do come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I mean, honestly, it's not unlike, it's like when you have a kid, like you have this moment, you're like, oh my God, what have I done? Like there's little things.
I never had that moment.
I know. I was like, what? I had twins. I was like, what happened? Oh my God, this is crazy. And then you're like, and you look back, like, oh, that was
right.
A phase. That was a thing. You know, like things evolve, they change. You get through them. You change.
Moment in time.
Yeah, but it is funny. Like this is not funny, but we have now a hornet nest now that is plaguing us on something. And when my staff told me, they were sort of like, oh God, you're like another, and I didn't even blink. I was like, of course we have hornets. I'm waiting for the locusts and then the frogs, and then it's just like you just absorb crisis better. You're like, of course we do.
So it's literally great. A hornet?
Literally
a hornet's nest.
Literally. Yeah, I'm like, that's great. Of course. Perfect.
Yeah. This too shall pass.
Yes. They will.
We'll find a way, we'll adapt, and we'll be better on the other side of it. Yeah. I do truly believe in that. Yeah. So.
Well, you're a positive dude like that. I like that.
I am?
Yeah.
Really?
I feel like whenever I met with you, you're very like moving forward, pushing
passion.
Forward, feeling
passionate guy.
Feeling good. Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to get the audience, give them an opportunity to learn a little bit more about you personally. Where did you come from? How did you get here? So let's go back to the beginning, the origins.
I drove.
You drove, of course. I flew. See, the passion. Yeah. So born and raised where?
Middletown, New York. Orange County, New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
And college?
I went to Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania for undergrad and majored in theater arts and English. And then I went to NYU for my grad and got my master's and certificate in public history as a public historian. And and came to New York and sort of fell in love with exhibitions as like a storytelling aspect. Like for a very big moment for me was seeing the Slavery in New York exhibit at the New York Historical Society in about 2005, I guess that was, and like a light bulb went off for me that like this is a totally different way of storytelling. This is not, and it's not. I'm not a fine arts person at all. It was just seeing that, and I went to the exhibit credit and I hunted down who produced that exhibit. It was a company called American History Workshop. They were working in Brooklyn. I put their card on my desk, whatever, as I wrote my thesis and everything, and said I'm going to work for them, and I did.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's funny how we have moments that stick with us and define our direction, whether we know it in the moment or not. And sometimes we do know it in the moment or not, but you have these points in time that kind of stand out, and it's interesting to look back and see how those things influenced you and how it played out.
Right, yeah.
How did you enjoy PA?
Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it was college. I loved college. It was fun. My parents both my parents, every one of my family went to Penn State.
Oh.
Okay, on both sides, like going back to like my grandfather. And so I, of applied and I got in, but was like I didn't want to go to this huge school. I'm so glad. I loved going to NYU for grad, but I can't imagine going to such a huge school for undergrad.
Big
right?
change.
So Muhlenberg is a small liberal arts college, and it was awesome. It was great.
I asked because I had a farm up in Honesdale, Pennsylvania.
Right.
That's my little escape. So
Yeah.
I didn't see you as the PA girl.
PA gal. Well, my mom always. What does she always say? I'm from Appalachia.
Appalachia.
Yeah.
So you go through school, NYU. How do we end up on the Rock?
So my husband is FDNY. And so, by virtue of that, we know a lot of people in Staten Island, and had really thought about it when we saved and saved and saved for our first home. Then went and had twins, and we were living in our 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. Twinsies, and the walls were closing in, and we were like, we need to buy a house. And obviously, we were priced out of Brooklyn and Manhattan. Looked for like a minute upstate, let's see what, because my parents are still up there, Westchester, and we both sort of like ran screaming. I'm like, I need to be like near the city, and I was not super hot about Staten Island when I first thought about it. Then came here, and particularly on the North Shore, I really fell in love with it. I mean, it was much, and this was 2016, leading into an election year, big contentious time, and we were looking around. I found more diversity, cultural experience, than I ever would have imagined. And then we got this sweet little home for a third of what our 1-bedroom apartment would have been, where I can see Lower Manhattan from my bedroom window. I have a pool for my kids. Once we discovered within 10 minutes you can be on a beach or running in a park.
Yep.
I was like gold mine. I was so happy, and we moved 4 minutes from Snug Harbor. And so legitimately, as we were searching for our house, I would ask people like, what are some of the perks around the neighborhood? And many people answered authentically about what Snug Harbor means for them in that community. So it was already in my mind, but also I'll backtrack for a second. I discovered Snug Harbor. My first time understanding Snug Harbor, somebody had recommended. I worked with a man who was married to the former CEO. He was like, "Oh, you should check out Snug Harbor." So probably 2 years before that, I'd gone out there, and I sort of was like jaw on the ground, and I said to my husband, so this is like probably 2014 or something. I said, I want to run that place someday. I said it out loud because I just was like, there's something about this place. I've been at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So even though you're going from a development corporation to a botanical garden, there was something so interesting to me about both places. They're both like off the grid, like you've heard the name, but you really know where they are.
Yep.
They're city property. They're maritime industry and history. There's a gate around them that makes them feel like you can't get in, but you kind of want to. There was just like a lot of things about it that I felt about. So then fast forward, I'm literally moving into the neighborhood, and I got a call about the job opportunity.
Really?
I was like, what?
See?
Yeah, so it was really, really wild. And then, of course, though, it's like at the time, I was an executive director at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, but this would have been coming into my first CEO role with 1-year-old twins. And I'm like, no, I mean, let me just do that too. But that's, I'm like, you can just, I want to go all in and like, and I feel like I was in a place where I was managing my life, taking on change, and like, I just think Snug Harbor, if you're somebody who has a dream like I did about really, really making a deep impact in a community, destination making, kind of that, I get really jazzed on that type of profound sort of like cultural influence. I really got into economic development from being at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I was just like, there's no other opportunity like Snug Harbor like that. It's unparalleled regionally for what it has.
Without a doubt.
So it was a, once we really talked through what it would mean for my time and everything, when we decided it was a no-brainer and did it.
So I started the show by saying you're a visionary, and I mean that in every sense of the word. And here's 2 examples of you seeing something, saying you're going to do it way in advance, and here you are, right? We're 2 for 2.
Yes.
So
I'm saying I'm going to win $30 million.
I was just going to say, can you say that we are going to win the lotto? You stole my thunder. All right. So I think it's really important that we share with the audience what is Snug Harbor and what does Snug Harbor have to offer, because everybody knows it, but very few know everything about it because it's such an amazing, diverse property. Can we talk a little bit about the history and then get into the hey, what do we have? What can we do? And then we'll roll from there.
Yeah, thank you. It is hard to wrap your head around it, without. It's a very experiential place. So, and I'll try to do the quick version of the history. So Snug Harbor was founded as Sailors Snug Harbor. This was a retirement home for sailors. It's a super interesting history. It needs to be made into a movie because there's so many fun players back in the day. It's founded on the will of Robert Richard Randall, he's a privateer, makes his fortune at the sea, doesn't have direct heirs, wants to leave all his money for a home for, quote, aged, worn out, and decrepit sailors. His will is executed by his good friend Alexander Hamilton, and so cool, right? And he names these big dignitaries by their title of the New York City to be to run the will. And so at that time he designates this part of northern, quote unquote, northern Manhattan, which is really the property area around Washington Square Park, right, as to be the site for this. So it takes about 30 years. They're going back and forth on this will for all these different reasons. And as the city's expanding so drastically, I think they have this moment of sort of maybe there's more valuable use for this land than having a retirement home for sailors here. So they come to an agreement that they're going to use the rent rolls from the leases, from the property management of that area to fund a purchase and the development of. They make a purchase on the beautiful Cille Van Cole in Staten Island to create this first of its kind home, and they break ground. The first Snuggies come in 1831, Building C, which is now our Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art.
What's a Snuggies?
The Snuggies are what they call the sailors, actually. A snug harbor, literally a safe haven, a snug harbor for these sailors. And if you ever come to Building C, you'll see the beauty of the dormitories. These are Greek Revival style, gorgeous, beautiful buildings. I mean, if you can think about how well endowed that system was for a while. Yeah. I mean, they build 50 plus buildings, and it becomes a completely self-contained community. At the height of it, there's about 1,000 Snuggies. And the requirements they're funny and lovely, and you have to display moral character. And these quote unquote old guys are probably younger than you and I, James. That are going in there.
Well, different time, different world. I mean,
exactly.
To be 46 at that point. Wait, I'm not 46. I'm 45. To be 45 at that point, having that career. That's right. Was very difficult. Right. It took its toll.
It did, yeah. And there's a lot of funny things if you mind, New York Times or Harper's, whatever. They often got in trouble for drinking and for alcohol consumption. So that was one of the things. But they were given 2 Brooks Brothers suits, and it was a self-contained community. You had a farm, you had a power plant, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, everything on there, and a beautiful where people get married today in the Great Hall is where they used to sit in a reading room and listen to music, and there was just this really holistic approach. There was a sanitarium. They were for convalescing, and there was just there was a morgue. There was all these really amazing approach, and then things really changed over the course of the of the turn of the century, and the safety nets like Social Security changed the way that the approach of these sailors, changed the needs, and simultaneously these 100-year leases it dried up,
right.
And so they start tearing down buildings, and then simultaneously people start taking a deep interest with the formulation of preservation and New York City landmarks in the 1960s comes in, and they take the whole front. We call it the front five Greek Revival style buildings, where Staten Island Museum is, and the Noble. Those and 2 others they name among the first New York City landmarks. And
really?
Then, yep, literally day one ones. And then the community works hand in hand with people there's a very famous visit from Jackie O that comes, and our district attorney Mike McMahon told me about it. He was one of the servers that day when Jackie O came, coming in, and you have these pillars from our community right now who banded together. There's a bunch of women actually that came together, this fabulous 5 that came together, and so with Jackie O and Brooke Astor, and they had these buildings saved. The city of New York purchased it, and they wanted to create it into a cultural center. And so, 1975, the Snug Harbor Cultural Center was founded. Separately, actually, the Staten Island Botanical Garden was founded. They only merged in 2008.
Okay.
Yes, and so now it is it's 83 acres, 26 buildings, 14 botanical gardens, a 2.5-acre farm, unprecedented architecture, home to the Staten Island Museum, Staten Island Children's Museum, Noble Maritime Collection, the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art, the Chinese Scholars Garden, and then 40 plus small businesses and studio artists. And, it's a real incubator for arts, and it's also a real employer. I mean, when you look at the nonprofit employment opportunities in Staten Island, we're all there. We're number one. We're the cultural anchor of this borough, and it's just an incredible site. I always say this: there's nobody that you bring to Snug Harbor that just goes, oh, everyone's like, what the, it's just, it's jaw dropping.
I've been there so many times.
Yes.
We recently had a walkthrough on a neat little project you'll be rolling out soon, and again, jaw dropping. Like it doesn't stop. Every time you turn around, there's something new, something amazing, something historical. That I don't know. It's it's a very grounding place. It seems to, at least for me, I get in touch with a different side, if you will. Yes. But it's that kind of place. It really is a magical place.
It is. It's really transporting. You can really go there and really, really have just be kind of, we have this urban oasis kind of aspect that we've been leaning into even more, due to recent events, and it's true. You can just go there and sit in the White Garden and feel transported to England. You can go to the Tuscan Garden. You can go to the farm. There's such a layering of experiences you can have there. The wetlands. It's crazy. It's amazing. It's a lot to wrap its arms around. I think it should be distinguished by the multiplicity of experience, and in some ways it's been held back because it's people want to go, well, what is it? But what is it?
Right.
It's not a museum, it's not a park, it's not a garden, and it's been very, I think, hard to get its own arms around what it is and who it serves.
Right. So let's, for the benefit of those who have not been there or have only been there in not in a real meaningful way and gone for like a full exploration of one of the components, because there are so many components. Let's pick the top 2, 3, 4 experiences, must-sees. Where does someone start? I want to come to Snug. I'm fairly new to it. Where do I start? Mm-hmm. What do I do?
It's a very seasonally driven place, right? Because we are a botanical garden at heart, and so if you're going to come let's say you're not coming in the winter, you're going to want to come and let it unfold to you. Like one of its strengths is discovery, and listen, if I had better wayfinding, I might be spinning a different tale. But I really do mean that in many ways. And we can, when we kind of get into maybe more of the challenges, we can talk about the fact that that's the number one thing I said walking in the door there. But in my interview process, said how do you know what to do when you come to Snug Harbor? You don't really, and that's a problem, frankly. Like there's not. And it's all in my plan now, but there's no center of gravity that grounds you, that says, wow, today you can go over to the Staten Island Museum and check out their women's suffrage exhibit, and then after that you can go over to the Noble and check out this, and then you kind of have to have a little bit of intuition. But if you can embrace that discovery as part of the experience, it can really unfold itself to you. I would say on top of those institutions, the New York Chinese Scholars Garden is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, period. It's 20 years old now. It was founded as the first in the country, and that's a Chinese Scholars Garden it was literally built. There was workers that came and lived on site in our cottages for 6 months from China, and built it by hand. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place to escape. And then increasingly the farm is one of my passions. Yeah. I love it. I got the bug for urban agriculture while working at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and when the Brooklyn Grange started, and I love what we're doing there. It's really amazing. I think we're starting to package more experiences where you really can come just for a day and unplug at Snug.
I like that.
Yeah, we're not the place that you're going to come for a corporate retreat that requires a bunch of technology. But do you want to come and we piloted this last kind of pre-COVID with a team from a big Manhattan corporation, and they came in. We made them put their cell phones down, and once they got over that, they did an ink wash meditation drawing in the Chinese Scholars Garden. Then went over and pruned tomatoes in the farm, and then sat and had a farm to table lunch, and it was maybe a 4-hour experience, and each one of them was like, oh my God, I'm forever changed. You just that sense of being able to do that is one of our strengths, is one of our true strengths that we need to just amplify more.
And we all should be looking for ways to do that, right? To unplug a little bit.
Exactly. I would be remiss also not to mention the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art, which is I would say one of our more overlooked aspects, but it is the oldest continuous contemporary art gallery in Staten Island. In a certain heyday in the 80s, it was consistently in the New York Times, and now we're showing more and more incredible work there in just an unparalleled environment. Like, you're seeing beautiful pieces of contemporary work against the backdrop of an 1830s sailor's dormitory that has original Tiffany stained glass windows, etc. It's also a really beautiful and unique experience.
So let's deal with the challenges of today, right? So you're president and CEO of this amazing cultural, which is a challenge unto itself, super high notoriety, Jackie O visit, right? To be in that position, in that role, comes massive responsibility, right? Massive amount of vision. So I want to get into the master plan and stuff in a little bit, because that was one of the most impressive execution of just the plan, how you're pulling it together, what you're seeing. I think is really you must do it now, right? That things are changing so fast.
Right.
It's so brilliant. But let's talk for a few minutes just about COVID. Must have a devastating impact, right? On how do you even begin to? I'm trying to manage this little rinky-dink shop of 30 agents, and this has got to be a massive undertaking, right?
Oh, you're sweet. I would say it's also like we going into COVID in March, we were about to have the best financial year on record for Snug Harbor, right? We'd just kind of cracked some codes. We were working together so well with our on-site partners. I always thought Snug Harbor needs to be understood as one destination. And that seems like a no-brainer if you know it, but it was held back in the past by personalities, politics, resources, and we were really coming together. And the strength of our programming, the strength of our vision had attracted new funding sources. We're looking to diversify our funding stream because we're very dependent on the city. Spoiler alert for what happens later. And then we bringing in state, we're bringing in corporations, foundations, and we're bringing in new streams of earned income. We're saying site activation. We're doing the Lantern Festival. We're doing other aspects that are going to have to be. We need to. The
Lantern Festival was unbelievable.
Thank you. Yeah.
What it was Disney quality.
Right.
Right. That's the best way I think I can explain it. Went there, went back again with the family, the kids. Unbelievable. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but wow.
No, it's worth interrupting. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'll just a sidebar on that. I really wanted to make sure we did something super wow in my first year plus there, and so that all kind of came together. It felt like a little bit of a leap. Wasn't sure how it would be received, and I was taken aback. I was really moved by a very consistent reaction I got, which was this idea of Disney quality. So many people said it in this way of it wasn't Bush League. I'd never even heard that term before.
Yep.
Like this sense that we deserve this. We deserve high quality experiences like that. Like that wasn't what I saw coming. I thought people were going to like it, but I didn't realize how much other people were like, I feel proud of this, who weren't even obvious stakeholders in the project at all. And that was so, I get a chill right now. I really do. That made me so happy and so proud. And so just oh my God, that really clicked for me because we were in the middle of the master planning process. Of course we deserve this. Of course this borough has the opportunity to have and create and attract world-class art and culture and experiences. Of course we're going to do that.
But we as a borough over the years and decades have, adopted this mentality of being in the shadow of New York City, and we automatically defer to going off island for these types of experiences. And as a lifelong islander, my mother's a lifelong islander, I can tell you that is exactly what the takeaway was. Look, there's a lot of great culturals on Staten Island, a lot of great experiences. That was by far and away the first time I had that. And I don't mean to keep saying it, but that Disney type of quality, it's the first time I had that experience in 45 years on Staten Island.
It's so amazing, and it was one of those like you build it, they will come. Like I just got such a kick out of the fact that like like New York City is arguably one of the best like seasonal Christmas whatever cities in the world, right? And you had people coming to Staten Island, to spend their December evenings for that event. We drew 150,000 visitors over 6 weeks. It was the biggest cultural event ever in our borough, and from that we had some like NYC and Co. were like, okay, let's really talk about outer borough tourism. Like, let's really talk about like these and then you take the economic impact. You go, okay, these people went to the gas stations, they went to the restaurants. There's such a circle there that is a no-brainer for how that site needs to be amplified. And it's been like a sort of a sleepy town, like secret, but it has that power. It has that power to draw people in a way that benefits and uplifts the whole community and the brand of Staten Island. And, we worked really closely with the borough president's office. I love the unexpected borough rebranding instead of from forgotten to unexpected. And we were just, now look, I'll come back to your question. I did not go that far off tangent. Here we go. Coming back. Bring it back. We going into March, we had all that behind us. You know what I mean? Going into COVID, like we were really, really doing it. And then it's just like the world stopped. And I'm part of the Culture at 3 calls, which is this. It's been now written up in the Times and Wall Street Journal and everything. It's the CIGs, the Cultural Institution Groups of New York City. There are 33 of us. This includes the big names like BAM and Lincoln Center, et cetera. These are it's city funded property run for cultural benefit. And we started these calls on whatever that was, March 10th or something, just about 30 of us. Today, that call has about 400 people. It's every single day at 3 o'clock, and it's arts and culture professionals across all 5 boroughs.
Every single day?
Every single day. In the beginning, we were even doing Saturday and Sunday. Now, just 5 days a week. And it's, it's just like the heavy hitter, like if you're in the arts and culture world, you know about Culture at 3. And I would say that's an example of somewhat of a positive outcome of all of this. Like we came together as an arts and culture world and said, like, oh my God, literally our business model is touch, engage, come together, be in person. Like, oh my God, like this is going to be bad. And also at that point, we were looking for city leadership on like opening or closing, and it was
tough,
very tough. And so it was an opportunity to kind of come together and go, let's make some collective decisions as a sector. And then it was like, let's buckle in for the ride as a sector and try to figure out how we can keep being adaptable and grow. So that's been something of a lifeline. My team constantly hears me talk about response, recovery, resiliency. What we're in right now, and at first it was just total emergency response for Snug Harbor. Even though we were on track, we bring in about 40% of our annual income between April and June. That's our annual gala. That's festivals, weddings, programming, arts council, and all these things that we do. All that gone, gone overnight. So, and then looking into now, even all the things that we do are very, very driven by in-person experience.
Yeah.
So you have to really get adaptive. But I would say a point of pride and distinction to me through COVID was, because we had this weird model, kind of going back to what Snug Harbor is. We're a botanical garden also functioning on an open park. It's not a great business model, but it also allowed us to remain open for socially distant, like strolling and the whole time. And we started hearing them from our community, like truly heartfelt notes on social media, direct letters that were like, Snug Harbor is my solace. Snug Harbor is my escape. It is my joy right now. And we were like, it motivated us to keep going. We were the only botanical garden regionally that stayed open the entire time. And then when the city approached us about, hosting a testing facility, we also said, of course, this is what we do. Like, everybody needs to switch. We need to serve our community to whatever we can do. Let's do it. And that was a tense for a little bit, because I think there were people who were like, oh, I don't want to have to. Now I was getting so much joy out of this place. Now I'm going to have to worry about people coming on sick. It totally it coexisted. It was beautiful. And we just did and then of course we did the things like pivoting into digital programming and doing all the different things, which we're working with you on as well, which we're excited about. It's been a real trip.
So I think the evolution that every industry, every market segment is going through, where we've all been moving toward and utilizing technology in a more meaningful way, right? That was happening way before COVID.
Yeah.
We've, slammed on the accelerator now, all of us. Are the things you're doing now to adapt, are these things that are here to stay? Do you think that these are things that kind of burn off as we return to normal? Is it going to be part of the future plan for you? How does that work in the cultural world?
So, in the cultural world, I mean, there's obviously a lot of, especially in in a straight performing arts field or other. There's a lot of ways, obviously, to absorb content not in person that have been happening, just like you said, for a long time, and a lot of ways to even get creative. I mean, you're starting to see performing arts groups come on stage with masks and do, and play up the social distance as part of the visitor experience. I think people are going to get super, super, super creative, and I think digital content is here to stay in many, many, many ways. For Snug Harbor, though, and at the risk of sounding like a Luddite, I don't believe that people are no longer going to want to engage. I think we are humans that want to be together, and I think we are humans that want to engage in our earth and sit down in the grass and be part of a bigger, healthier life cycle. I just do, and so. Already to begin with, Snug Harbor is one of our strengths because of decades and decades of deferred maintenance and aging infrastructure. One of our strengths is not technology. Like I referenced at the top of the podcast. I mean, it's not. But I do think the things that we can offer as a site to bring community together in meaningful, right now socially distant, but even in the future, in really grounding ways, are something that we want to do even more. I mean, I would say, let me give you an example. So for our farm, we have the Heritage Farm. That's always been a site where we bring students on and we learn about, science and soil science and life cycles and food and healthy nutrition, et cetera. But we've made money from also direct sales to high-end restaurants. Mm-hmm. That went away overnight, right? I mean, per se, Minelli Tavern, the Wrench of the Week, gone overnight. So our very amazing head farmer, Ezra Pakachow, he was like, look, we've been talking about doing a community-sponsored agriculture model for a long time. Let's do it. Let's get the community engaged. So we came up with maximum 90 shares at $600 a pop. And I'm like, are people going to want to do this? Nobody has money right now, blah, blah. We sold out with waiting list. Recouped a significant portion of the money that we needed to do.
You're so smart.
Because we leaned into the community and
great.
Said and also took a bet that people are even more interested than ever. I mean, in growing their own food and getting back to the earth,
supply
back to
chain
the land.
issues, all these things are homesteading is now a really big deal.
Exactly. Victory Gardens. I mean, Johnny Seeds was backed up forever, right? I mean, so and you have this, and then when we opened it up now on Wednesdays, people come and we have it all. It's all outside, and we've made it into this whole concept as Wellness Wednesdays. And the first one we did was June 3rd, and people were like, "This is." And we're joking. We're like, "This is this quote unquote social event of the season," because you hadn't seen anybody in so long, and you're outside, and it was just to pick up your vegetables and talk with people about health and true health, right? I mean, we have literally we are sick as a nation. We're literally sick, and so to the fact that we have this opportunity to make people feel literally healthier. Right, and a CSA model is good for the environment, good for the economy, good for your body, and so it was a smart pivot, and something like that. That's here to stay for us, for sure.
That's great. It's really amazing to see, and again, these impacts are different for every different segment. But that's a brilliant example of what the new norm is going to look like.
Yep.
So, I mean, it must be unbelievably challenging. And how do you manage? You're so reliant upon revenue from the city, right? So with all the changes and the I hate to say it, but the financial fallout for this is it hasn't happened.
Yep.
What we've seen has been the tippy tip of the iceberg in the cycle, the real estate cycle. These things report 1, 2, 3 quarters later. So as companies are doing the same thing you're doing, right? Finding new ways to skinny up and to save cut costs
Yep.
and find better ways to be more linear and to vertically integrate and to cut expenses,
Yep.
Manhattan is going to look very different than it does now for some time to come.
Yeah.
So where does that put you? What are the same restrictions, for example, that were pre-COVID about what you could do with the property? Do they exist today? Has any of that loosened up yet?
That's such a funny question. I was approached by something that I'll talk to you about off record, actually, because you'll be interested. That like normally I would have been like, well, we're not zoned for that. I'm like, let's do it. Let's build it. Like, it's gonna bring in money. Let's do it. Go. I need sustainable income. I mean, it's an interesting question. It's also interesting that right now, from a tourism perspective for arts and cultures, you're not literally allowed to be attracting anybody from outside. So you take like some of these bigger institutions in Manhattan that you think are more stable, like they're screwed. I mean, when you can't bring in any tourism out of, like what, and you're operating inside 25% capacity, forget it with theaters. I mean, it's crazy. That's something that I'm trying to take some level of solace in, that Snug Harbor has been, in many ways, like I've said, it's a double-edged sword. It's kind of held back by the diverse business model, but I at least have a diversity of streams. I've mixed income opportunities.
You've got a lot more tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, we do. I mean, just the outdoor aspect, and it's with some of my cultural colleagues on the island. We somewhat laugh. Like, I mean, it's a sad problem to be in. Like, we weren't beholden to revenue admissions and sometimes as our big income because we didn't have enough people. But now that's like you've already learned. We already know how to be scrappy.
Right.
We already know how to do that. But the dependency on the city is a huge issue. I mean, and it's an issue, and then when something like this happens, you're like, oh my God. Like we have work with my fantastic board on different scenario planning. We have the different levels of what happens when God knows what happens in November. What do you do?
Right.
So
what can people do to help? Is there anything we can do to help yet in the business community? How do we help mobilize, get the message out? What do we do to help? Because this is a place that's near and dear to a lot of folks out here on Staten Island, and there has to be something, right? I mean, are we there yet? What can we do? What's the message that you want to get out to our audience of like, hey, let's get rolling on this? Is there something there yet?
Yeah, it's interesting that's moving. Even 2 months ago, it would have been very hard to even answer that question because we were very self-conscious about the fact that this was a health crisis, right? And so like being like, no, we need money. We're drowning. You had to really be sensitive about where to place that. But I think the strength is because the reality is that investment into arts and culture is investing in the communities that need it the most. We are the people that create the pipelines, the projects, the workforce development opportunities, the career exposure, all the things for communities that need it the most, that are most at risk during a health crisis as well. Like we can't be seen as superfluous, and especially on Staten Island, where even our own islanders don't see us as a destination for arts and culture. It's even a harder message, and I think it needs to be understood. That this is, especially for some place like Snug Harbor and some place like the zoo and some place like this is city property. The city still has an obligation to invest in its own infrastructure and its own buildings for the public benefit of the people, and then also that it's that the work we do is truly community-based work, and I think all of us to be successful are going to have to dig in even deeper into our community right now, and just and prove that worthy investment. Think about what would our community have done if I had said like I can't do it on how the money I'm shutting down and closing stuff. Like it would have had a profound effect on the daily lives of people around us. Yeah. And I think our people need to understand that we need investment. We need people to donate, to invest, to become members, to get on board with what we're doing, so that we can continue to serve. Because I know there's so many. I'm also on the board of the Staten Island Non-for-Profit Association, and I'm so worried about the non-for-profit world. I'm so worried about any small arts and cultures or organizations who are just legit not going to make it. I mean, and listen, I could be sitting here as a restaurant owner and be saying,
without a doubt,
it's not about one more than the other, but I'm just talking about this sector. For now, it's really, really, really challenging, really hard to imagine exactly how we go from here.
I've been rambling on about an idea I've had for years. I've mentioned it to a number of the electeds. I've mentioned it to community leaders, and it doesn't seem to gain traction because they can't figure out how to implement it. But something that I've thought about over the years to create something that's sustainable. Look, after 9/11, the construction industry saved New York. Mm-hmm. It really did. That's what took off and kind of relit the fires, for New York City. And so much of the commerce for the city and the state's budgets derived from construction and related industries. As an island, I think about challenges for developers, and I'm not talking about irresponsible development. I'm talking about responsible development, stuff that's in the character of the neighborhood, things that are per zoning, things that fit. The big challenges for the developer is changes. You go into a property expecting A and you get F, right? That's very difficult to endure. So why don't we put a development tax, right, for piloted out here in little old Staten Island? There's the residential market is red hot. People are looking to come to Staten Island. Yep. People are looking for a little bit more elbow space, but there's still an appetite for vertical development on Staten Island if it's appropriately set, right? We have a senior population that's set to double in the next 5 years. Highest disposable income, folks that we want to keep here on Staten Island. We have no place for them to go. Carve out X dollars per foot, tie it to floor area ratio. Every square foot that's on your permit, there's a tax, $2, $3, $5, whatever it is per foot that goes to schools and culturals to help keep this sustainable model moving forward, right? I feel like we have to start thinking very outside the box, and maybe that starts to help foster relationships between developers and the community. And if you're going to build in the what I call home and you call home and we're all calling home, there should be some level of barrier to entry that is that can be put into the pro forma day one. You know about the expense going in. You can underwrite for it and account for it and start building more renewable sources of revenue to help incentivize people going in knowing, hey, okay, I know that this is the zoning. I know this is where I'm going to end up, and this is what I'm going to pay to do it. Yeah. And this will go to schools and culturals.
I love. I mean, that's amazing. To me, that's such a positive feedback loop. It's. I mean, when you look at the lens of arts and culture for economic development, like it is a hallmark of a healthy city to have a healthy arts and culture, thriving arts and culture sector, and that can't be forgotten. That how deeply that is required of the health and wellness, right? And if we're looking through, if everybody's looking through sustainability, then you have to. Arts and culture has to be a part of a puzzle. When you're looking at district scale revitalization, you need a cultural anchor. And that maybe is a good segue if you'd let me talk about my master plan for.
I just circled it.
Boom.
Master plan.
Boom. So, I mean, the quick upshot of that is we were so fortunate for the city to say, look, Snug Harbor is a place that's going to keep coming back to the well. We have 26 buildings. They're aging infrastructure, right? And there's just been this make a capital project deteriorate, make a capital project deteriorate. Let's get some actual real planning around this and do something great here. So we had the great opportunity to work with Marvel Architects as the lead architects, and then incredible slew of sub-consultants and leads. And we looked at the entire site, comprehensive. I mean, every single square inch finish, building system, the existing conditions report alone, I literally cried when they gave it to us. I cried. I mean, it was just like, oh my God, this is such a wealth of knowledge. But the goals we outlined are three goals. It's upgrade infrastructure and buildings, improve visitor experience, and increase opportunities for earned income. Because those are the three things that have to go hand in hand to unlock the potential there. The whole master plan is a 20-year plan for capital investment. It is intense. The price tag is huge. But we broke it down to a phase one, which is a $25 million price tag.
Which is nothing.
Which is effing nothing.
Nothing.
Which is
$25 million is nothing in the scale and scope of New York City.
So, but it was still one of those things where I was still competing against this idea of it's really about what Staten Island deserves, right? And so I feel $25 million for the city to invest in its own property here should be nothing, because it requires an upfront investment, and I positioned it as such. I mean, we need an investment into this property so that we can then return on that investment. And so I thought, we need to strengthen this. I've commissioned a separate policy and economic analysis to go just for that phase one. James Lima Planning and Design did an incredible job to say, if we put this investment in, here's what happens over 7 years at Snug Harbor and in the North Shore. And so this is an example. You said, what can we do? So that was $25 million, and it was almost like people couldn't believe I had the audacity to actually write down that number on a piece of paper and go around and ask for it. But our elected officials were amazing, loved it, ready to fight for it, fought for it, and then again, like our cycle when we ask for capital projects is early March. The world just changed.
Yep.
The city, and I appreciate the city. The city has to make a lot of tough choices right now. I really do get that. And the city they did not give any capital project fund money at all this year. But our council members came together, and I got $3 million for it. Look, it's a drop. It's nothing, but it's at least something towards this project. And it's such a visionary plan for transformative change. And what kills me is some of these projects that get ballooned up. You could do a small building for, as you well know, for $20 million. This is like, invest in this, and this, and creates a center of gravity. You get people to come around this site. This brings, it really looks at a whole sense. And it's not just, it's so smartly planned. Like any design intervention, let's say, is, under the subsurface is all about stormwater management. Like it's layer upon layer. It takes in mobilization. It understands the site, and it makes it such a more dynamic center that's going to raise the profile of every person on site. So I need to figure out a way, James, to it's like this balance between sort of like shelving that and then just and then going full cylinder on it and saying, well, this is still the plan. It doesn't matter that we had a pandemic. Like there are things that have to change, but that's still the plan.
So, look, if you take a look at the budgets and what money is being allocated where, right, which I think is step one for the city, the state, for any municipality, any locale, you have to really take a step back and almost forget there was a yesterday. You have to take a look at what's available, what we can do, and how do we just not even do it better. How do we redesign the entire structure of how money is collected, where it's collected, when it's collected, why it's collected, how it's deployed? Forget about past promises and procedures and policies. We have to really clean slate, fresh whiteboard, take a look at it. The $25 million in the city's budget it's so not even relevant. But I think that there's got to be a public-private partnership in this new world, right? I think there's a way to find that. So how many phases do you have?
4.
4 phases. And do you not want to talk about the total price tag?
No, it's $300 million. It's 83 acres, 26 buildings.
$300 million over a 20-year plan. Yeah. Come on. It's not in my side of the table, right? When we underwrite projects and we look at things, we look at projects from, $800,000 to $200 million, $300 million on one project.
Right.
Right? So there certainly is the resources available. There were the resources available. So as we look at the new norm, right? Life AC after Corona, I think we really have to take a look at restructuring how we allocated for these different must-haves and necessities. And culturals are an absolute must-have, right? It's such an unbelievable part of the fabric of the community for our mental health, for our physical health. This is, I think, part of what the new world has to look at. Yeah. So I would love to see leadership start focusing on these things more. Yeah. I get the triage, right? Yeah. We're throwing tourniquets everywhere, yes. And what I'm feeling and I'm hearing and I'm seeing on the ground is, what's the plan, right? Like what's tomorrow going to look like? Look, it's no secret. People are relocating out of the city, yes. Right? In scary numbers at this point. But if we give them the reason and we give them the incentive and we get a plan together and we get jazzed about all the wonderful reasons that there were to be in New York and all the new wonderful reasons that there will to be in New York, and you tie it together on, I mean, if you look at the size and scale of Snug, how does that measure into like against the country? Have you ever looked at that? The whole overhaul, I mean, as far as how that would measure up, this has got to be a significant project even across the state and in the country.
Yeah.
Right? So these are the things that have to be at the top of the list as we start to reorganize what the new norm is going to look like.
Yeah, because this is there's an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity
without a doubt
to rethink, to reset, to do it, to whiteboard it.
Are you in an opportunity zone?
I mean, we're for Reds. Yes, we are. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm zone parkland though.
So if you're in an so what? I don't care what yesterday's rules were. Right?
Right.
If you're in an opportunity zone, there's an amazing, I hate doing this. Every time I say opportunity zone, I still haven't come up with the word to follow up opportunity zone opportunity. There's an amazing opportunities in opportunity zones to create incubators and to help launch new companies, right? There's, I mean, weddings on campus. We don't have to put a 500-room hotel, but we should have hotels, right, that go along with this and all the ancillary services that go along with that.
Yes.
Think about, like, the most amazing bridal center in America. Like,
exactly.
could be right here on Staten Island.
Right.
Like, it's got that type of majestic feeling, that type of deep, genuine beauty. There are so many ways that we can monetize this site. Not that we're looking to monetize the site because we're greedy developers, because we need to talk about survival. That's the reality, and that's what people have to start talking about.
Right, and that's what I kept on saying in this master plan. I was showing the income coming in and showing where the net profit doesn't get changed that much, but it's because we keep reinvesting into the site. More, like that's what it needs to happen. But you need more sustainable income streams to reinvest in the site.
Yeah,
I mean, you just do, and we have, and that's part of this plan. I mean, we have this incredible farm. Of course, part of the plan down the line is a destination restaurant, a farm to table. Of course, we ask anybody. I think it's like 6 degrees of separation. Everybody got married at Snug Harbor, or their cousin did, uncle did. Right? Why wouldn't we have a really beautified bridal suite with on a on-site B&B that accommodates that? Why wouldn't we take our artist residency program is unique in the city and that kind of a live work play model. It's the only place you can go live in a cottage, create your work, and then show your work in a music hall or the new house. Like we already have this. It's like we have the infrastructure there. We just gotta like
pivot
it, and shake it up a little bit with a little bit of investment in there, and then it'll return. But it's always just like that. It's like if I just had a little bit more money, I could make a little more money.
Right. So, as we rethink this, and
please solve this for me right now, please.
Yeah. Well, I think we are, but we need support. We need our leaders, and we need the community to get behind these types of initiatives. We need people to get out there and be much more vocal about what their expectations are from their leaders so that when these issues do come up, we're able to mobilize and make things happen, right? So, I mean, think about the silver linings and the things that will stay with us as we emerge from this wellness, right?
Yes, exactly. We are your go-to for wellness.
Amazing campus. The opportunities and the wellness market is... It's unbelievable the amount of opportunities there. Green technologies.
Yep.
Right? How we, are trying to think of ways to solve for landfill issues and greener technologies and greener energies. There's so much talent.
We're looking at compost socks for stormwater management, like on site, right? Like things like that, right?
Yeah. If you couple that with opportunity zones, right? So, really quick, how I'm thinking maybe this can tie in. If you set up an opportunity fund, a QOF, we talked about this with Matthew, and you can then take into this fund any capital gain. If you sold a wine collection, if you sold cars, if you sold your art collection or real estate, you're able to put this money into a QOF. You can put only a portion of the gain that you want to put in, not like a 1031 where you have to put every dollar in. If you have $1 million gain and you have a $300,000 basis, you pull your $300 out. If you want to take out another $100 for the kids, you take that out. No penalties. You roll forward into this fund what you want to shelter. Now you set up incubators for green technologies, for wellness, and you're able to make investments in these micro investments into these businesses. You give them an opportunity and a place to hopefully launch companies with great success.
Right.
And then if you stay invested in the deal for 10 years, Aileen, and you sell the thing, for $800 million because you came up with this groundbreaking technology, tax-free. It's tax-free. So there's ways as you start thinking about this amazing asset, opportunity zones, new way of kind of looking at the world, after Corona, the infrastructure, the unbelievable assets that you have at your disposal here, you really could monetize and you really could effectuate change in the community even beyond the amazing way that you have already. But we need support from the city to do this, right? We need for the decision makers to start thinking differently when they look at these things, right? I think a lot of the old rules have to be written. I think the whole world's got to adjust in a real meaningful way, and we're spitballing here and we're having a little bit of fun with it, but these are real opportunities, and these are things that I think we have to start taking a hard look at.
It's amazing. You're right.
So is there anything else we wanted to touch on? I mean, there's so much we can dig into and go for hours here, but I want to be respectful of your time. I know Petey's over in the ones and twos. He's been in the corner all day. We have to let him eat from time to time. But is there anything else specific you wanted to touch on?
Let's see. I did want to say we are doing a little fundraiser called Neptune Picnics. So we have our annual gala, which is called the Neptune Ball, which is usually in June every year. Again, we lost that all that income, and so to pivot, we thought, well, what can we do to recoup a little bit in a way that's authentically, exceptionally, uniquely Snug Harbor, and that is this concept where you and 10 of your friends can come and have a beautiful, catered, gourmet from the farm picnic in one of our either Chinese Scholars Garden or the Lemon House or outside someplace, and we kind of bring in your music and your lights, and there's a huge portion of it's tax deductible, and so
how does it work? What are the packages? Give us details.
Yeah, just go onto our website at snugharbor.org, and you'll see it's a group of 10 people. It's $2,000. It's which really helps us out. You just tell us here's the date I want to come. It's any date you want to come. We make it happen for you. We take care of the whole thing. You just get to come with 10 of your friends and be outside and love and have a good time.
So this is a difficult time for everyone financially, but these things are important. Please put us down for a picnic. We'll do a company thing there. Maybe we'll even do 2 picnics so that we can get everybody in. Folks, this is a really important time, and it's easy to write checks, and it's easy to do these things when you're rocking and rolling. It's hard when you're not, but this is when it matters. And this is when the people who have given so much to our community need help. So as we're going through our day and we're thinking about what we can and what we can't do, please keep Snug Harbor at mind, because it really is a wonderful institution. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Again, there's so many things that we have to work on and think about, and I'm here if you ever need help, whatever I can do, please.
I do have to say that. I do have to just shamefully say that you have been such a partner to me for no reason other than just to share your leadership and your knowledge base. And you've come on site so many times. You've listened to my spiel. I called you in probably March or April at some point when I said, how do I be the best quote-unquote landlord I can be? What am I going to do? You gave me great advice. You always do. You show up for arts and culture. You show up for small businesses. Thank you so much.
Well, we don't do it for no reason. We do it because we believe in you, and we believe what you're doing. And as an Islander, to be there with my kids, it was a new program, something you had run with, and to have that Disney-like experience in my hometown was really freaking cool. So keep it up, keep crushing it. How do people reach out? What's the best way to reach Snug?
Website. Get on Instagram. Get on Facebook. Come to our website, www.snug-harbor.org.
All right, Petey, make sure you put all the links in and all the good information of how they can find Aileen and all the wonderful things she's doing.
My personal phone number.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was so fun.
Always a pleasure. Everyone, stay safe.